Well, everyone, I'm delighted to welcome Pastrick Bet-David to the Storybox podcast today. After fleeing with his family at the age of 10 from Iran as refugees, he came to the United States and literally his entire world changed. He ended up joining the 101st Airborne. And then after that, he started a business career. He's the owner and founder of Valuetainment, and he's been able to speak with so many amazing people. I won't bore you all with all the details. But welcome so much to Storybox Podcast, Pastrick Bet-David.
Good to be on. Good to be on with you.
It's an absolute pleasure to have you here, sir. I usually ask people one question before diving into all the good stuff, which is, what does success look like to you?
Alignment. It's that simple for me. It's purely alignment. If my values and principles match my behavior, I'm successful. For example, if you set out a goal to say, success to me is making $150,000 a year income, having a lake house, driving a pickup truck, fishing twice a week, spending time with my kids, having dinner at 5 o'clock at night, and you end up having that life, and you have another person that's making 10 million a year, and you have zero envy, zero jealousy, zero anything, and you're fully content and happy with that 150 a year lake house, truck, 2 days a week fishing, 5 days family, kids, 5 o'clock dinner, 6 o'clock dinner, you're good. But if you get to the 150 a year, 2 days fishing, you spend time with your wife and kids, and you envy other people that make 10 million a year, and you secretly want that life, then that's not success. Because you want a bigger life, you just don't want to put up the effort. So you got to figure out a way what alignment is to you. If your vision matches your behavior and your values and principle, you're successful to me.
I love that. When was it for you that you realized that success for you was actually being in alignment? Was it a catalyst moment for you, or was there more of a gradual thing?
No, it was both of them. So for me, I didn't understand that part till I was 34, 35 years old. I'm 41 right now. I had no idea what this meant because I kept going, and I'm like, how in the hell do other people not want to win as bad as, what is wrong with people and what's this? And then, one day my dad sits me down and he says, what's the matter with you? So I said, what do you mean? He says, how many people you think want to be who you want to be? I said, why are you getting so upset at everybody? That buddy of yours doesn't want to work that hard. That other guy does. All these people you want to become business partners with, they don't have the same vision that you have. Go find people that have the vision that you have. So then I sat and I said, but they're wasting their talent. Who cares? It's not on you. That's their decision that they're doing that. But Dad, how could they even do that? They got such a big upside. They have choices. You don't tell them what to do. They get to choose to what they want to do. So I'm like, oh my goodness, man, this is driving me nuts. So then I started realizing, 33, 34 years old, and I was having a lot of anxiety attack, panic attacks, all this stuff, just a very rough time of my life. And one day I sat there and I said, listen, who do you want to be? What kind of a life do you want to live? And by the way, that's the whole thing about Your Next 5 Moves. I wrote this book specifically because of that. The book's been out for 2 days. It's already a Amazon or Barnes & Noble bestseller. If you go on Amazon right now, it's #1 on entrepreneurship, decision-making, all this other stuff. But the first move that you make in life is knowing who you want to be and what kind of a life you want to live. What does this mean? If you and I can figure out, I had a conversation yesterday with one of our guys that works here. And good guy, he's a guy that grew up on the farm, simple guy, Christian guy, wife, family, the whole nine. I said, tell me how big of a life you want to live. He says, $200,000 a year income is good. I said, do you want that to happen? And when would you like that to happen? 5 years, 5 to 10 years. I said, what if we can speed that process up to do it in the next 12 to 18 months? Would that be important to you? Not really. Not really. No. You're serious? Yeah. How does your wife feel about it? Would your wife like to see it accelerate? Actually, no. Do you see how that's kind of like, so are you okay if you're 75 years old, you're looking back and your vision never became a reality, you just lived a regular life? I would be. He's saying this to me. I have so much respect for that because he knows who he wants to be. The problem, I've had a job, run an insurance company with 16,000 agents. We went from having 66 agents to now 16,000. We're in 49 states, 500,000 square feet of office space nationwide. The whole nine, all this stuff that we've done, we've raised millions of dollars of money, and we're now selling 11,000 policies a month, 10,000 policies a month. We used to sell only 50 policies a month. And I've known after training thousands of people that make anywhere between $50,000 a year to making $200,000+ per month, right? One of the most difficult personalities to ever work with are ambitious, competitive, lazy people. They're the most bitter people I've ever worked with. Let me say this one more time. The most bitter people I've ever worked with is ambitious, competitive people who are lazy. They think big, they want it all. They want to beat you. They want to be so competitive, but they secretly are so lazy. They don't want to pick up a book and read it. They don't want to get to work. They blame their mom, their dad, their sister, their husband, their wives, their kids. They blame everybody except for one person. Yeah. I can't do nothing about folks like that. There's nothing I can do about folks like that. This is why your move number one in life is figuring out who you want to be. And once you figure out who you want to be, then you can make the next necessary step. So yes, I figured that part out at around 34, 33 years old.
I love how you mentioned that, and it's directing people towards purpose and figuring out what they actually really want in their life, because there are a lot of people out there that do actually struggle with it. And it's not, you're right, you were 33. It's not like this one day you're 16 years old and you're going to figure out exactly what you actually want to do in life. I mean, that doesn't always happen. And a friend of mine, I was speaking to him as well, and I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on this. He's like, your purpose is not the destination. It is part of your journey. So don't ever think that for any moment that your purpose is it's going to change over time, over your journey, and that's okay. And don't ever think that you're going to be good at just one thing. You can be good at so many different things. So I'm curious for you, Pastrick, when you decided to write this book, how did you figure out like all these other moves at the same time? Like, did they all come to you at once? Or was it like this, I figured out the first move, now let's figure out the next move?
Yeah, it's a great question. So at this point of the game, like where I am today, I have my next 15, 20 moves. You know, I kind of know what I want to do. That's a whole difference, because the reference of the book, Your Next 5 Moves, originally the book was called Your Next 15 Moves. The publishers say, that's too intimidating, let's lower to 5 moves. But to me, when you read the first chapter, I talk about how Magnus Carlsen, there's a great documentary about this great chess player, and he's facing his hero, the number one grandmaster in the world. And he beats him as a kid. He beats him. And the other guy's looking at him like, how did you just beat me, right? And then the whole correlation becomes between an amateur chess player only know their next move. A pro knows their next 3 to 5 moves. A master knows their next 5 to 10 moves. And a grandmaster knows their next 15 moves. If you see most people, they're just kind of going about life and they're just like, yeah, life is cool. Yeah. Be great if I found a girl, you know, that I can go on dates with and maybe have some sex with. It'd be kind of cool if I got a girl and show it to my friends that I got a girl and she's pretty. And I don't know, I kind of think it makes sense. We now that have been dating for a year and a half, we should probably get engaged. And I think it's time we get married, because everybody's getting married. And look, we've been together for 3 years, married for 3 years. I think we should have a kid. Why? Everyone's having a kid. My mom keeps asking if we have a kid yet. Yeah, that's not a life. That's not a life. It's, okay, why do you want to get married? I'm sorry? Why are you getting married? Everybody gets married. No, I didn't say what everybody does. Why do you want to get married? Isn't that what you're supposed to do? Who told you what you're supposed to do? Why do you want to get married? Why do you want to have kids? Why do you want to be an entrepreneur? Because everybody said they're an entrepreneur? Why are you doing anything you're doing? So once you go from that side and you say, oh my gosh, so this is who I want to be. Okay, so if this is who you want to be, what are your next steps? Step number 1, I want to be a, $1 million earner real estate agent. Okay. If that's what you want to be, what are your next steps? Number 1, buy every book online that has to do with real estate with 200+ reviews. Move number 1. Number 2, identify the top 5 brokers within a 10-mile radius of where you're living at. Move number 2. Number 3, contact these 5 brokers and get a job interview with them and ask them if they're willing to hire you so you can shadow them for 6 to 12 months. Number 4, become that person's most supportive sales rep, whatever, for the next 2 years. Number 5, become his number 1 producer afterwards and help him out on Sundays, Saturdays. Move number 6, make him $500,000 a year income and then ask for equity in the company. Number 7, If he says no, leave and start your own real estate. Do you see how this kind of works? This is sequencing. So first, I want to be $1 million earner real estate agent. Great, let's move number one. Go buy the books. So that's the sequencing part on what you put together, right? And that's the part that most people don't do. This is why it says your next 5 moves. So for me, where I'm at right now, I'll tell you a story. I was 28 years old. I'm at Pebble Beach. We're golfing. And I took my mentor at the time, a pastor of mine at that time, with me on this trip because I wanted to know whether I should stay in this company or leave and start my own company. Most people had no clue why I took him there. So I took him and I had him to see all the different cultures and the people that were there. And then one day we're sitting down and we're at a bar, and one of the guys that was a top earner at the company making $3 million a year says, Pat, at what age do you think you'll be worth $100 million? I'm like, oh. No one's ever asked me this question before. At the time, I'm probably worth $1 million, okay? $2 million. Not a lot of money. I'm getting it going, but nothing crazy yet. I said, I think I'll have $100 million by 40 years old. You see, you think so? Yeah. Why? In my mind, I'm just doubling. If I double $1 million, 2 million, 4 million, 8 million, 16, 32, 64, yeah, I'll be worth $100 million by 40. And he's like, why are you so certain about it? Because everybody was kind of like, well, I think maybe. I'm like, $100 million by 40. By 40, I'm worth $120 million. I'm 41 right now, and our company in the last 5 months had the biggest profitable months, all this other stuff, right? So one, I had the goal. Then it was sequencing. I brought a mentor to see, do I stay here or do I go and leave start my own company? On the flight back, he says, don't leave yet, stay another year, and kind of says, because this could still work out. I stayed a year later, I'm like, I don't know if I want to do this. John Wooden dies. I go to the hospital that John Wooden dies. I meet him. We have a deeper conversation. 6 months later, I start my own company. So these are sequencing, right, that you go through. So once you figure out this game, and the easiest way to play this game is grab a paper and pen and say, I want to get married. How do I find my ideal wife? Number one, what is an ideal wife? I have no clue. Why don't you go read a book? Okay, 101 questions to ask before you get engaged. Number two, once you know what kind of a girl you're looking for, why don't you tell everybody you know what you're looking for? Number three, so you see how that works out. Just play that game and eventually get better at this whole your next 5. And actually, you'll start having a lot of fun if you play this game. So that's kind of how it happened for me.
So I'm curious about what happens if you make these plans, right? You make all these, you write them all down. These are going to be my next moves. But what happens if they don't actually work out the way you envisioned them to actually work out?
Great question. They're not going to, just so you know that. A general says, we're going to go kill the enemy. So what's the most important part of my statement? We're going to kill the enemy. What's the goal? Kill the enemy. Okay. Then your sergeant major is going to ask you the next question, which is what? How are we going to kill the enemy? Then a good general with his sergeant major and his captains and his majors and his colonels going to say, here's how we're going to do it. If we attack this way, if they do this, we do this. If we attack this way, if we do this, they do this. If we attack this way, they do this, we do this. If we attack this way, they do this, we do this. If we team up with them and do a proxy war, if they do this, we do this. And we have to be ready for it. So why don't we send 20,000 of our soldiers this way, 8,000 this way, 7,000 this way, 3,000 this way, put 18 snipers at that unit this way. So if they attack, so the thought becomes being ready to pivot and call audibles and adjustments. It's never going to be number one, number two. No, because you don't know the reaction of what other people are going to do. You don't know what's going to happen to the climate. You don't know what's going to happen to a pandemic. You don't know what kind of a crisis is going to come up, a 9/11, a war, a market crisis, a new election, a Republican president, a Democrat. You don't know that stuff. But a part of a grandmaster is, as you're making your moves, you also know the right audibles to make when there's surprises. That's also a part of the strategy.
So speaking about that as well, I'm curious, like the one thing that keeps coming up into my mind, because Patrick, I'm a Christian and I believe whenever I make decisions in my life, I pray about it. I've got 4 Ps. So first one is persistence. Second one is prayer. Third one is perseverance. And the last one is patience. So speaking about all those Ps, being prayerful in my next decision, I want to ask you, because you mentioned you went and saw a pastor one time. Are you a man of faith, and has it impacted all your decision making with your next moves, with business, with just life?
I mean, you see the cross I'm wearing, right? If I'm ashamed of it, I would hide this and I would go like this so you don't know what I'm wearing. I put it out. It's very simple. I mean, Whether you want to take it as a subliminal message or not, I would not be where I was. An atheist 25 years of my life. You need to know that part. I was raised in a communist family with an imperialist dad. And if you've seen the things I've seen and lived the life you've lived, it's very hard to believe in a God. I lived in Iran, saw a bunch of wars, and I lived at a refugee camp in Germany, and it wasn't pretty. I saw the dark side of a lot of people. And when I joined the army, there was this old man. When I went away for a camp for scoring high on my PT exam, we had to do 1 hour of spending time with this man at this camp for 3 days. And it's a lake house, and it was only 6 of us, and we could go play billiards, but I had to listen to him do Bible study for 1 hour a night. And it was so boring for me because I had no desire to hear anybody talking about God. And he would do this every night. And then eventually at the end of the camp, he said, look, son, I think you need this Bible more than I do. This was given to me on December 24th of 1974. I have the Bible till today. He says, I think you need it more than I. I said, sir, I'm telling you, I don't need it. I'm not going to read it. He said, just take it. So I took it. I walked away. From September of 97 till today, I probably prayed 90% of the days. I prayed 3 times a day because of this man. And my prayer started like this. I said, I don't believe in God. I don't think you exist. I think it's fake. I think it's something to make people feel good. But I'm going to pray anyways. And this is the way I'm going to pray. God, if you're out there, here's where I'm at. This is what I'm dealing with right now. Okay. Today, this happened. I didn't like it. That happened. I didn't know what the answer was. Kind of feeling lonely. I wish my mom and dad were here. I'd like to spend time with this. I'm not with a girl. I wish I had a girl to talk to. So I just kind of started going through this at 18 years old, lonely guy, insecure, self-esteem's low. You have no idea what the whole purpose of life is. You're in Kentucky, Tennessee. There's no Middle Easterns out there. You're all by yourself trying to figure this thing out. Every other week, I'm getting to a big fight. And I went from there. And then eventually I made a decision. And I can tell you today, everything that's happened in my life, because I fully believe there's a higher calling that has my back. And it's helped me make better decisions in my life. Okay, sounds good.
Love that. So I've got a couple more questions for you, David, if you don't mind. This one I've only asked to a couple of people before, but I'm curious about your response on it. What was the lesson that you learned when you earned your first $1 million?
The lesson that I learned? So I've been asked this question before, and I will tell you, this may not be what you want your audience to hear or what you want me to say, but it wasn't a big deal to me. And I know it's going to sound very pompous or arrogant or cocky or any of that stuff. To me, it was part of the process. I was more excited the first time I had $50,000 in the bank, believe it or not. When I had $10,000 in the bank the first time when I got out of the army, that was a lot of money to me. When I cracked $100,000, it was exciting. But once I figured out the formula, it was just a matter of time. Like $1 million was coming, 10 million was coming, 100 million, because it's a formula. It's expected. It's supposed to happen. But the first 10, 50, 100 was a very big deal. $1 million wasn't a big deal.
Wow. I'm curious about risk taking. So what was the biggest risk that you've ever taken in your life, and why did you take it?
Getting married is probably the biggest risk you'll take, because you are already living a life of barely getting along with yourself. Then you decide to marry another person that doesn't get along with themselves all the time. And then you decide to try to make your parents get along with her parents. And then you try to figure out a way to get your siblings to get along with her siblings. And then you decide to have kids, and you try to figure each other out, yourself out, and now you got a kid without a manual. Then you try to do that 2 times and 3 times. It's the biggest risk I ever took, is getting married. Okay. Now you also know the bigger risk, the bigger the reward. Life wouldn't be the same without the kids and the family that I have today. The second biggest risk I took in 2009 is when I left a very, very great, steady position. I was on track for making millions of dollars per year. And I decided to start my own company. It was a very big risk. I took all my savings and I put into it. It's a whole story I talk about in this book, Your Next 5 Moves, about it, on what happened with me and the lawsuits and all that other stuff, which I go into exactly how we processed the issue on $400 billion company suing me when I'm 29, 30 years old. And it was a scary thought, because I was going to go bankrupt and I was going to lose everything. We were 13 months into the company, a year into the company. I got $13,000 left in my checking account, and no one knows. My wife, no one knows. I'm just trying to keep everything good. So personal life, marriage, business life is starting the insurance company and risking my steady income that had coming in.
I like those, man. So my last two questions for you. This one is my legacy question that I love asking people at the end. So you've been able to reach the age of 100 and your friends have put together a film for you of everything you've ever said and everything you've ever done. Don't ask me how they got it. We'll call it magic, but they just did. And they've shown it to you on your 100th birthday. What do you want that film to say and to show about your life?
Just want him to roast the hell out of me. I really do, because my guys they're such good roasts. You know, they just want to, well, Pat does this or PBD does this and he does that, or that one time you did this, and they make fun of all this other stuff. But I love to see the moments we've had, and, you know, the incredible challenges we overcame together as a group, as a family, as individuals. But, you know, that would probably be at the top.
I like it, man. Love a good roast.
Yes.
Yeah. My last question for you is, if you could ask a question to anyone alive or dead, who would it be, why, and what question would you ask them?
I mean, there's a lot of them, but one of them would be to the Shah of Iran. Why'd you leave Iran when the revolution started? Why don't you just stay put? That would be one question I would ask. If it was with Hitler, I would say, what did the Jew community ever do to you? I've heard 50 different stories about you and Mein Kampf and all this other stuff. What were you thinking? Like, I understood you thought like the greatest genes in the world was Norway, people from Norway or Germany, but what does that have to do with going after a community like that? What did they say to you? What is it we don't know about you that was a dark side? Were you publicly embarrassed? Did a girl break your heart? What happened there? Were you publicly humiliated by a Jew kid that you helped? That because nothing makes sense. What was that all about? Like, what were you doing? Anyways. And then I got like millions of other questions like that, but those would be a couple weird ones I just asked you.
They're great questions. I think I'd ask probably the same thing, especially to the same people that you mentioned. It's just crazy to think, right? Where can people find you, Pastrick? Where can people buy your book? Why should they buy your book in the first place? And yeah.
Yeah, so they can find the book on Amazon, Your Next 5 Moves. You don't have to buy the book. You buy it if you want someone to give you what's worked for them to identify their next 5 moves. And I think this book can help you with that.
And people can follow you on social media. Where can they find you on social media?
You can put the links below. They'll be able to find me on Instagram, Twitter. I'm pretty easy to find. You just look for Patrick David and you'll find me.
Thank you so much, Pastrick, for your time today. I've got so many more questions for you, but so little time. Really appreciate you, man. Can't wait to actually dive into your book.
Awesome. Keep it up. Take care.
Thank you so much. Be blessed, my friend. Take care.